It's been 1 year since the Jrue Holiday trade. I think it worked out pretty well, but there are some interesting ripple effects across the league. We're going to talk about it right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster Brand, it's holiday season. Drop Jrue in the mix. And 3 from KP, no, we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Deuce, still Beantown's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in locked on after. Karalis on the breakdown. Clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic, documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and J's, how we started raising business. How we finish. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day, and thank you so much for making this your first listen every day. Welcome aboard any new listeners. So happy to have you here checking out the show. Please subscribe if you are new to the show. Everydayers, love you. Thank you so much for being here. Shows on YouTube, get into the comments section there. Let me know what you're thinking about everything that we're talking about here today. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed at FanDuel.com. Go ahead there to get started. Let me introduce myself. I'm John Karalis, for those new listeners. I've been covering this team for about 20 years, which is it's a lot of gray hair in this beard. I've been around for a little while. I'm doing it right now as a beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. You can pick up one of my 2 Celtics books or both of my Celtics books at johnkaralis.com. Built Different celebrates the Celtics championship, the 18th banner. Signed, personalized copies, $30 mailed out to you anywhere in the United States. It's been a year since Jrue Holiday joined the Boston Celtics, which is weird to say as the Celtics are now in Abu Dhabi getting ready for their first preseason game. We kind of forget at the hectic last-second stuff that surrounded that trade and all of the moving parts. So let's bring in our guy, Tom Westerholm, to have this kind of really, the Celtics haven't done much. They've been trying, I think, adjust to the time and spent like a day and a half trying to adjust to the time and sightsee in Abu Dhabi. So we get to talk about Jrue Holiday and like just the fact that the 1-year anniversary, the reminder that the anniversary comes at the beginning of training camp. You're like, oh my God, we were sitting here, you and I, having discussions about Robert Williams and how does he fit with Kristaps Porzingis, and do you play double big, and who comes off the bench, and we had like real earnest discussions about this. And then the Damian Lillard trade happens, and even then I was like, I just don't see how they can get Holiday, because they would have to give up Robert Williams. Like they're not going to do that. They're just not gonna. And they did. So you look back on that moment of, wow. Brad Stevens, not only did they move Marcus Smart to get Porzingis because the Malcolm Brogdon thing didn't work out. Now they package Brogdon and Robert Williams to get Holiday, and it's like unbelievable, mind-blowing move.
Yeah, and it, I think it really is hammered home around this time of year, right? Because like 2 years ago, there was all the, there was all the coaching craziness. We got like the Holiday craziness. Like this has been so quiet this season. You know what I mean? Like that, like this, the off season, like we kind of knew once everybody started getting re-signed, once everything started to kind of be on rails a little bit, right? Like it was like, then it was just a matter of like, okay, how many of these guys are the Celtics going to sign and re-sign and sign to extensions and whatever it is? Turns out, everybody, like pretty much, sorry, O'Shea, but pretty much everybody else, everybody's going to be in the fold. And I think it's interesting with the Holiday trade because that was such a, it was so sudden and so so obviously monumental when it happened, right? And but it almost like didn't feel real because it happened so close to the start of the season, and it was just like oh yeah, like they could make a move like this shortly before a year, and yeah, actually this makes total sense, and I see exactly why they did it. And this is it's funny to think about at this time of year after a summer where it's like, yeah, we know pretty much exactly what's coming back this year. Like last year at this time, this was a completely new thing. There was something very, very new in the air last year. And it's kind of funny to think about the Holiday trade in kind of those terms.
I look at it now, you have the benefit of a year, and like obviously the trade worked, they won a championship. So everything that they did worked, and that's the end of the story in one sense. But the new collective bargaining agreement was agreed to in April, like towards the end of the season. The Celtics go off and lose to the Milwaukee Bucks, to the Miami Heat. And all of a sudden now you're Brad Stevens is sitting there like, okay, we just lost, kind of embarrassing. We have this mix of players on the team and we've gotten this far. We have a new collective bargaining agreement, and that's going to be a problem. And the one thing that I will give the Celtics front office a ton of credit for forever, this group of guys, they have incredible foresight. They took that document, they digested it, they spent probably all of April and May pouring through things, looking at their situation, going like, this second apron thing is going to be a problem. And I think part of what they did was like, we're going to be stuck. We got to get ourselves a team that we can roll with for the next few years. And that's going to be like, can we really roll with Marcus Smart? Can we really roll with Robert Williams and his injury history? Can we really roll with, like, we're not going to be able to get somebody, like Malcolm Brogdon's going to be around. If we can't trade him, then he's going to be the guy. Can we roll with this? And I think the answers were obviously like, no. You not only was this, well, you got to give something to get something, which is always part of the equation.
Yes.
I think part of this was with Marcus and the Porzingis deal, like, we may have run our course, and we're willing to make these moves with these particular guys to move forward. And with Robert, it was, this dude is just hurt so often. Can we really put that much into him if another team's willing to take him? And that's the team that has Jrue Holiday.
Yes.
Then we can't sit there and be mesmerized by how good he currently is. We got to make this move with the future in mind,
with the present in mind, like like as well, right? Because it's like,
well, yes.
The other thing is, you have to, like, to an extent, kind of push some chips in, right? Like, you have to kind of say, like, okay, with this second apron looming and everything else, right? Like, there's a sense of urgency here. Like, if you want to win with this group, like, you have an opportunity to do that now, and to, like, bring in players like, Jrue Holiday and Porzingis and everything else, and to move off of guys who, like you said, like, it's like, okay, if you catch lightning in a bottle, if Robert Williams stays healthy for an entire season, and you get another 60 some odd games out of Malcolm Brogdon, and you get all this, like, and maybe, and Brogdon doesn't get hurt in the playoffs like he did, it's like, if you catch lightning in a bottle health-wise with that group totally could have won a championship. There's no question about it. But you had to, it required so many things to go right that were just like, there was no guarantee that was going to happen. And there was no guarantee that this new group was, that they would catch the lightning that they caught, but they did. And I think it's funny you mentioned the like the conversations that probably happened, like, in April. And it's like, last episode we talked about, wouldn't it be awesome to have like a Hard Knocks, or like to be in the room when Joe Mazzulla is talking? How much would you pay to sit in a room with Mike Zarin, just listening to him, like just figure out, okay, like, this is how the CBA is going to shake down. These are the moves. These are the types of things we need to be thinking about. Like, just conversations that you would love to hear. That's another one.
Yeah. I mean, look at it. Like, I'll throw some credit the Knicks way. We just came out the Knicks, like figured out like you can't aggregate minimum salaries in trades now based on where you are. So they just paid all their minimum guys $1 more than the minimum.
Yeah.
And they're like, and now you can aggregate them. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Just a simple little thing, but like that's the type of stuff that Zarin thinks of, like too. Like, what if we did this? I can't. My brain doesn't work. Like there are just super geniuses in there. Yeah, that would be incredible. So Holiday comes in, and it's like this immediate, like, okay, I get it. Like it just things snapped into focus. We'll talk about that when we come back. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. If you're an NFL fan, you can start the season big on FanDuel. Get a big return because if you're placing a $5 bet, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. And if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out all the latest stats from that game, the live play-by-play, and a whole lot more on the same page where you place your bets. So if you get this feeling, you're like, oh, let me see. You open up your phone, you open the FanDuel app, and then you go, oh, yeah. I'm going to, this is where I'm going to put my $5 bet. You place that $5 bet, you get you 200 in bonus bets. Hopefully your $5 bet wins, but if it doesn't, no big deal. Those $200 in bonus bets got you covered. Make sure you're using the tools that FanDuel has set up so you can gamble gamble responsibly. You can set your limits, you can set your budget, and have some fun at FanDuel.com. It's America's #1 sports book. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA, rotating hosts all week long. I'm there on Wednesdays with Jake Madison. It's a fun way to cover the league. When the games start up, we're going to be heavy on those nights' games. So go check that out. Keep up with the league and watch the show on YouTube. Get into the comment section there. Make it your second listen every day. So Holiday comes in, and as I said at the top of the show, Marcus Smart was already gone. It was supposed to be Malcolm Brogdon, and I wonder if the Brogdon thing had happened. I wonder if they would have made the move because they did have Marcus Smart. I'm torn between they were just kind of done with Marcus Smart, and I felt like, in retrospect, you're like, ugh, they were so quick to pivot to the Marcus Smart backup plan on the trade that it made me feel like he was gonna go somehow. Which I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But regardless, he went in that Porzingis trade, and it did leave a hole on the perimeter. And, there were real question marks. Like no one looked at that team and said, okay, that team's gonna win a championship. They're capable. They're capable. But then when Brogdon was traded and Holiday came in, you start to look around the perimeter and you're like, damn, that Holiday, White, and we didn't know that Derek White was going to be exactly what he was, but we thought he's still really good. Like,
yeah, you started to see it, not last year, but the year before. You started to really see the vision.
You started to see it, yeah. But he even exceeded expectations. You're like, wow, Holiday and White, that's really good. Jaylen, Jayson, obviously really good. Porzingis, Horford, like somebody's got to come off the bench, but whoever comes off, this is like, this is. Things snapped into place, and that's probably why another huge reason why they made the move. Holiday comes in, and you're like, I see this vision completely.
Yes. Yeah. It was like the day of the trade was just like an okay.
Yeah.
Like it was really like eye-opening. And I mean, you talk about like Derek White, you couldn't have known that he was going to take the steps. You couldn't have known that Jrue Holiday was going to shoot 60% from the corners either, right? It was like there was some stuff here that was like that worked out probably even better than the Celtics probably hoped. But yeah, I also, I can't remember specifically what we talked about. I would bet that there was some conversation about like, well, like the Holiday will probably be good this year, but like it's very sudden, and the year a guy gets traded, sometimes it can be tricky. Like those things. Barely any of that. It was pretty seamless instantly. And a lot of that is a credit to Jrue Holiday himself, right? Like I mean, we'd watched him, we'd seen a lot of him, and in interconference battles, all that kind of stuff. But like, I guess I didn't realize when he was traded just how good he was. Like
Yeah.
I'd seen him a lot, but I did not enough to kind of get all of the little things and all of the defensive, like additions that he brings. And
Sure.
yeah, like that kind of stuff. It really was eye opening to kind of watch him those first couple of months.
You know that he's good, but then you see because when you cover a team, you just watch all the little nuance a lot more. Like if I'm watching the Celtics play the Bucks, I'm watching everything that the Celtics are doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not watching every little tiny detail because I'm not writing about the Bucks.
Right.
I'm writing, I'm watching what the Bucks are doing, and I know that it's tough to screen Jrue Holiday because he gets around screens.
Yeah.
And then you look at him, and you're like, oh my God, I wish I could do anything as well as Holiday navigating a screen. The footwork, the anticipation, the angling of his body. It's like, oh my God, this is so perfect. Like, you know that somebody is good at something. Like you sit there and be like, that dude is great at the guitar. And then you look at him playing, you're like, oh, what is he doing? He did, oh wow, and you start to really appreciate it. So yeah, the fact that it took no time at all speaks to the professionalism, how good he really is, just how good he really is, and that he just slid right in. One of the things that stands out to me about Holiday is he's so chill. He's not even like in scrums. There's no lip service being paid. He just, if you ask him something, he's just, and he just, if like we asked him about Abu Dhabi, he's like, I don't care. I don't care. Like, yeah, he's challenge, I guess. I just love to play basketball. So I get to go play basketball with the Celtics in a pretty cool place. So you're like, damn, like,
yeah,
that's easy.
It's interesting, right? Because I think that demeanor kind of rubs off when you watch him play defense too, right? Because it's like, all right, like let's say you're guarding. I watched a clip today where he was guarding Kyrie Irving, and like in the clip, Kyrie makes a move on him, and Jrue doesn't really get caught flat-footed as much as he kind of plants his feet very hard, and then just kind of like lets the move that Kyrie does kind of like wash over him for a second, and then he just kind of is back in place, right? He just kind of just like stomps his feet down and then gets back into position to play defense. And it's like there's that demeanor where he's calm. He's still intense, right, on like the defensive end, but he is calm. He's not going to get like crossed over. If somebody does make a move on him, he's going to just kind of move on to the next right thing to do on the defensive end. Like there's no, I mean, like you're never gonna be perfect on the defensive end. People are going to beat you from time to time, and it's about kind of how you react to getting beaten in those moments that can kind of define how you play defense. And that's like something that he's amazing at. It's just kind of like, okay, now I know the exact next right step to take, the exact next right move to make. Like it's very impressive and very instinctual. And it was, it's interesting when you talk about how when you watch the Bucks like play the Celtics, obviously you're watching the Celtics, and it does kind of speak, when we used to watch Marcus Smart, there was, I think other people might not watch him as closely as Celtics people do. And that was why we had this extra appreciation for him, right? Because it was like, oh, like, no, you guys who hate Marcus Smart, you're not seeing the whole thing. Like, I promise you're not. Yeah. There's so much going on defensively that you notice when you watch 82 games plus playoffs every single year and you see him in all those games. And yeah, I mean, the same thing's true of Holiday, right? It's like when you're really zeroed in on it and you're watching the screen navigation and the individual defense and the versatility and just when you're watching the whole package over and over and over again, it's very impressive.
And to that point there with like Bucks fans, they knew Holiday very well. And I remember like get ready for, playoff Holiday, the shooting, not going to be able to handle the shooting and blah, 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 blah. And people were waiting there. from the Bucks perspective, and I'll bring this up and we'll talk about the ripple effect after, but they brought this up and saying like, okay, we're okay with the Dame trade because we know that Holiday has this tendency to maybe not shoot as well in the playoffs, and he has these like moments. So it won't go like that. It won't go as well as people think in Boston. So we're okay, and it goes perfectly in Boston. Like he had one bad shooting game early, and people were like, "Oh, see," and then he just went ballistic, and people were like, "Oh, never mind, I'll shut up now." So that was interesting, and so that brings me to the ripple effect. Most notably, I think for three teams: the Bucks, Celtics, direct competition, and their level of regret. The Clippers to a degree, and the Blazers. So we'll talk about that in just a second. So Tom, I feel like the Bucks knew, or Bucks fans knew they were in trouble when the early analysis at the beginning of the season was if they had to do it all over again, would the Bucks have made the same move? Like there are people who are saying, did the Bucks do the right thing by trading for Damian Lillard, knowing that Holiday went to Boston? And I still wonder if Bucks fans are sitting there going like, maybe we shouldn't have done that, because obviously last year went the way it did. And this year, who knows how this year is going to go. Damian Lillard is great. There's no doubt. He is great. But the Celtics won the championship, and Holiday was a huge piece. So, like, the ripple effect in Milwaukee is so huge because who knows what this is going to bring for that franchise. If they don't have a good season this year, and it might not even be Damian Lillard's fault. It's if Chris Middleton is hurt still, and who knows how that's going to go. But this trade could be like looked at as this is where things started to fall apart for the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I don't feel good if I'm Bucks fans, you talk about like a Bucks fan, right? Like it's like you kind of have to like tell yourself, I feel like you kind of have to tell yourself a certain thing about that trade that like, no, it was totally good actually. And it's like, there's no way that that's the case. I'm sorry. Like I think you just look, Damian Lillard is, an amazing offensive player. And like just as good as it gets at the guard position, right? Offensively. But then like there's the whole other side of things that like Jrue, I understand too that it's like, okay, you look at Jrue Holiday in Milwaukee and the fit isn't quite as seamless and easy as it is in Boston, which incidentally is something that like, when Bucks fans are like, okay, like we're okay with this because Jrue Holiday isn't going to shoot well in the playoffs. It's like, well, he might not have for you guys, but if you look at all the other players on the Celtics and the types of shots he's going to be getting in Boston, they are different than the types of shots that he got in Milwaukee. Like it's just this whole Celtic system. Everybody eats so effortlessly sometimes that those shots were going to be a little bit easier for Jrue Holiday. But I don't know. I think if I'm a Bucks fan and I'm being very honest with myself, I don't see how you could look at this. I don't see how you could feel good about things the way they stand right now. I mean, like you said, you gave your direct competition the missing piece it needed to make itself a not just a finals contender, but a finals favorite for multiple years, right? Like this year again, like I don't see, like, I'm not saying the Celtics are going to win a championship, but if you don't consider them like a favorite, I don't know what to tell you. You gave them the exact thing that they needed on a plate. And, what did you get for it? You got a really excellent offensive player who's getting older, who has never been a great defender, and who has never been that far in the playoffs through no faults of his, through not all entirely his fault, right? Like his teams were never that good, but like that was a huge risk to just kind of send Jrue Holiday out into Portland's ether and be like, yeah, hopefully this doesn't bite us. And like, yeah, totally did.
Well, I think from the Bucks perspective, I'm sure they were sitting there thinking like, come on, LA Clippers, come on, LA Clippers, come on, LA Clippers. Like, you're trading him to Portland. Portland's rebuilding. They don't care if the Clippers are going to be good or not. So there's nothing to say you should have seen it coming by trading him out west that they're going to send him back east. I'm betting that the Bucks were hoping some of the same things that I was saying, which was it's a big price for Boston to pay, and the Clippers really, really need a point guard, and they also have tradable pieces. Some other team, Boston, they might not have thought Boston was as big a threat to get him.
I'm sure they didn't think so. Yeah.
And you look at the Clippers, like that's a team that look at where they are now. If the Clippers were able to trade for Holiday, they wouldn't have gotten Harden at that point. So they would have had Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Jrue Holiday. I think that's, it's more of a distribution type of, a guy that can at least set the table for everybody. I know Harden's a good passer and all of that, but you're not getting the shell of a former star. You're getting a player that can defend and that has the team in mind. I just feel like, and he's also not as expensive. I feel like the Clippers are in shambles right now, and they might not have been if they had been able to pull off a trade. So in the, early September, or I'm sorry, mid-September, late September dealings from the Milwaukee side, you're like, okay, we send him to Portland. Portland sends him somewhere that needs a point guard. It's not going to be Boston. We'll catch up to Boston. And the Clippers are sitting there hoping to get him. And like, we're going to get the point guard that we need. For Boston to pony up the money, the players to get him. It just now we're talking about two teams in complete disarray or somewhat disarray because Boston was able to make this deal.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, and like the ability to do that, honestly, like is like, it's funny, right? Because it's like, in a trade negotiation, you're thinking like it's so much like chess, right? Because you're thinking, okay, if I push this piece over here, then this piece over here is going to come here. This piece over here is going to come here, and it's like, I do think that when you take into account all the damage that the Celtics were able to do, in addition to making themselves so much better, right, by going out and getting Jrue Holiday, when you also consider the damage they were able to do to others, it probably would have been worth thinking like, okay, they like Robert Williams for sure. There's no question about that. Do they like him enough to not want to improve themselves and really just like hurt us a lot? And like, I mean, that's kind of one step further that maybe the Bucks should have considered.
Yeah. If
hindsight is
like,
so 2020 here. There's no question about that.
It really is. Yeah. Like if the Bucks knew that he would have ended up in Boston, would they have done the deal? Maybe they would have.
Maybe they would have.
Maybe they would have. And you could argue that hiring Adrian Griffin was the bigger problem in Milwaukee. You could probably sit there and take some of the onus off the front office there. But in that same vein, as I was saying, probably not going to happen. And I also like Robert Williams enough where I'm not willing to give up Robert Williams to get Holiday. Like I just wasn't. But if you told me, hey, this is the Bucks are going to get like worse. This is actually, they're going to fall apart and not be a threat. And you're like, there's going to be like a couple other teams that it's really going to be a trickle down effect. I'm like, yeah, maybe I would make that deal. Which is interesting because you can keep going down like this, doing that to the Clippers. Well, now the Clippers let Paul George, they traded Paul George. Maybe that's something that, the next trickle down is Paul George ends up in Philly because of the Jrue Holiday trade. Yeah. You could probably do this to the beginning of time. So the first trade led to this, and that led to this, and connect everything through some sort of thread. But it's interesting to look back on it. And I'm very curious to see where it goes, because the Celtics get super expensive next year.
Yeah.
And they're not going to pay. They're just not going to pay a $200 million tax bill, are they? I guess it depends on the new owner. So something's got to change. Something somewhere has to change.
They are in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe somebody's like making some sort of secret deal and like, hey, I don't know. Who knows? But hey, it was a deal that worked. And if they win another one this year, I mean, look, if you want to say forethought, trading for Jrue Holiday before the Olympics is an absolute winning move, because he won the title in Milwaukee and went to the Olympics and won gold. Then he came to Boston, won the title, went to the Olympics and won gold. And by the way, somewhere in that Milwaukee run, there was an Abu Dhabi trip. So it's kind of like, yeah, the Bucks went to Abu Dhabi and played. I think that was before they won the championship. So, still, it's kind of like deja vu. So some team in 3 years should trade for Jrue Holiday and see if they can capture that magic.
Yeah.
Again, one more time. But obviously a great player, but what a perfect locker room fit. What a perfect attitude. I think maybe somewhat of a calming influence for a team that maybe didn't have, or like, in terms of like keeping Marcus Smart or moving on from Marcus Smart. Marcus was always the emotional spark. Marcus is chaos. Marcus is like, he's the guy that's going to do the chaotic thing that disrupts something on the floor and helps you, like, makes those winning plays. And Holiday is like the calming guy. And I think maybe they just needed the calming guy instead of the chaotic guy. And they didn't realize that at the time, but he just brought this level of maturity, calm, whatever. Don't worry about this. We're going to get the next one. Like, it just perfect fit, absolute perfect fit.
Yeah. And the last thing for me, like, I think the thing that sums up Holiday perfectly, like last season, was in game 5, right? There we talked about this at the time after it happened, but there were, I think, 3 or 4 like times where he grabbed offensive rebounds that were just like, hey, no,
yes,
I am a champion. I know what we need right now. And what we need is this MF offensive rebound. I'm going to go get it. It is, guys, come on. We got this. We're good.
The Celtics were doing their thing. They were doing their Celtic thing.
Doing their thing a little bit.
It was
Holiday said,
absolutely correct.
Nope. No, thank you. I got this. And it's like, that moment alone is like,
yeah,
the whole a perfect summation of why you make that deal that close to the season. You need that guy.
You need that guy. They got that guy. It's going to be a fun season with that guy. All right. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to my guy, Tom Westerholm. Appreciate you as always. And I appreciate you, the listener, you, the viewer, you here who's with me 5 days a week, sometimes, maybe a couple days a week. Maybe this is your first time. I hope that you are enjoying the podcast. If you're still here, sticking around, maybe you want to subscribe to the show, get it dropped to your device. 5 days a week, post-game podcast during the regular season and playoffs, every time they play. I'm not going to do one. I'm not planning to do one Friday after the game. I'll do one Sunday after the game to encapsulate both games, because I don't know who's going to play on Sunday. So I kind of want to talk about both games at once. So that's the plan. Unless something big happens, we'll see. But please subscribe, watch the show on YouTube, get into that comment section. Let me know what you think there, and then share the podcast. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.